Hi, it's Andy, and today I'm filming a collaboration video. I've been asked by Beccie over at AZebraReads to take part in this collaboration, and it is recommendations for books with badass female characters. So there are going to be I think there's like 20 of us doing these videos, and they will all be put in a playlist that Bex will curate, so I will put all that down in the description. And they're all going out the same day, so after you watch mine you should be able to go and watch the others. So just, make your way through that list and get yourself some new books with great female main characters. Because of the type of person I am, I've got 20 books here to talk to you about, and I think I've got a pretty good selection. Some you'll have heard of, some you may not have heard of, but I am excited to tell you about them, so I'm just going to get started. The first book I'm going to tell you about is Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. If you've read this, you know that this is just chock-a full of badass female characters. This is about Her Majesty's Royal Coven, who are a coven of witches that work with and for the government to sort of look after the Crown's vested interest in the magical world. This follows our main character Neve and looks a lot at her friendships with other witches. So there's a witch who she was friends with when she was younger, who's now the High Priestess of HMRC. One of her friends broke off and created her own coven. One is now a mother and a nurse, and her sister went to the sort of dark side, Neve's sister. And it follows these women as they sort of deal with this new threat, which is the Sullied Child. The Sullied Child is a prophesized child that is going to destroy the world, and HMRC think they have found this child, but there's more to that child than meets the eye. But this is just basically 5 friends. I said it's like Charmed meets the Spice Girls, and I did not think I was going to enjoy this, but I really, really, really did. So I really encourage you to read it. Next is Vampire Interrupted by Lindsay Sands, and you're going to have to let me explain this one. So this is book, God knows how many, of a series. It's my favourite series of all time. It is called the Arjanu Rogue Hunter series by Lindsay Sands, and I picked this one up specifically because Marguerite is the character that I want to talk about. So this series follows, so it starts off with the family, so the siblings and then cousins, and then Marguerite, who's the mother of this family, and how they find their life mate. So they're scientific vampires who have been made vampires through nanotechnology, and there's this thing in this world called a life mate, who's someone that you can be with and be relaxed with and be yourself with, and they are it's basically like a fated mate, soulmate type idea, but it's so interesting. I love the concept. And Marguerite is the matriarch of this family, but she's also kind of like the matriarch of all the, like, of everybody. So she is interfering in everybody's business, and she is just the best. I love Marguerite as a character. She is so ingrained in her children's lives and those that she loves, but not in like a bad way, in a way that's like she just so truly loves her people and her family and her adopted family, that all the strays that she adopts, like literally says in her books that she adopts strays. And I love Marguerite as a character. These are great vampire romances, and all the characters are pretty, like all the female characters are pretty badass, but in particular Marguerite is my favourite, and I talk about her so much when I'm talking about these books that my friend was like, if you don't include her, I don't know what you're doing. So here we go. Next is Cinder by Marissa Mayer. This actually I've pulled to represent the whole Lunar Chronicles. So each Lunar Chronicles book is introducing us to a new female character. So you've got Cinder in this one, Scarlet in the second, Cress in the third, and Winter in the fourth, and each character name is the title of the book. All 4 of these girls are badasses in different ways. Like, Cinder is a cyborg who is pushing against the status quo. We have a Scarlet who has lived with her gran for ages, and when her gran goes missing, she's like, nah, I'm gonna go find her. Cress goes against the person that's keeping her captive to do what she thinks is right, and she's such a timid character to do that. That's a massive thing. And then Winter is again kind of being kept captive and fights back. All these women, all these characters, I love them, and I think they are definitely badass main characters. The Lunar Chronicles, if you've not heard of it, is a quartet of books which are retellings of Cinderella, Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel and Snow White, and they are set in a sort of sci-fi fantasy world. So obviously cyborgs exist, and there is a species from the moon, like a species of human from the moon, and there's a war between them and Earth, and it just gets all, you know, crazy. Next time I can not mention this because otherwise I think my friend Tori would riot, and that's Poison Study by Maria B. Schneider. Poison Study is the start of, again, another extensive series, and this has our main character Yelena, who is in prison for murder and justified murder, and in this world the commander, who is the sort of he is the head of Ixia, the whole country, and it's split into military districts. He needs a food taster, a poison taster, and so the next person who's due to be killed for their crimes is offered the position, and Yelena's the next one. When his poison taster dies, she's offered the position, she takes it, and again, she's somebody who is kept, you know, was kept in a horrible condition and abused, and then fought back against her abuser and ended up in prison, and then takes her life back when she becomes the poison taster. She decides that she's not going to die, and it just goes from there. And there are other female characters in this, and I can't remember her name. I can never remember her name. I think it's Marin, and she's just like a badass. Like, if I could picture her in my head as an actress playing her, it would be the really tall woman whose name I can't remember from Game of Thrones, tall blonde woman from Game of Thrones and in Star Wars and other things. If I can remember, I'll put her name somewhere, or put a picture. That's how I imagine Marin. Next is the Age of the Five trilogy. This is the first one, The Priestess of the White, and this follows our main character who, when she's a child, stops a massacre of our town and is brought into the priesthood in this world, and ends up serving as one of the five who are the representatives of the five gods. The gods in this are real. There are five gods who are called the Circle, and they basically just work through these priests, these like head priests who are the five, and it's such an they are like chunky books. It's only a trilogy though, and yet she does so much. Like, she is one of those characters that really, really cares for people. She's a leader who really, really cares for people and will do her best for them, even if it goes against her best interest. So like, if it's going to harm her but they come out okay, she will do it. And she's also got a really, really strong moral compass and will push against the status quo. I love this main character, whose name I can't remember, Araya. I love Araya. I think she's a fantastic female character, and I wish more people would read this. I also really love the magic system in this. So basically magic is everywhere. It permeates the air. It's just everywhere. And everyone and everything can access it. So plants access it to grow, and animals access it to be able to do things. So like, there are animals that can like stun their prey, but what they do is, instead of sending it like a shockwave, like some animals, like those shrimp that like snap their little things and it sends it a shockwave, these can like do it with magic. And you can sort of pull the magic into you and use it. And obviously everybody has different abilities, and I just love this magic system. Next up is Vasia from The Bear Nightingale. This is, I think, a retelling of Vasia the Beautiful, or Vasia, I think that's what it's called, I can't remember. But this is the first in the Winter Night trilogy, and this follows Vasia from a very young age, and she can see the old gods. She can see the sort of creatures that exist in mythology. So there's like this little god type thing that looks after their hearth and helps with the baking. There's one that cleans the house. There's gods in the water. God is like a loose term that I'm using, but you know what I mean, like mythical creatures. And she can see them, she can interact with them, and she always has been able to see them. But then her mother dies, and her dad marries this other woman who is extremely religious, and when she comes to the village, she brings a priest with her, and everybody stops worshipping the old gods. So they slowly come away from the old gods and the old ways, and they start to suffer. The gods start to suffer, and she can see this, and she tries to help them, and incurs the wrath of her stepmother, who is like she's not great. But this then follows our main character Vasia when she meets Morozkov and also other old gods, and it's basically like a race against time to save the world, but not in like a whimsical, like middle grade way, like in a really quite dark mythological way. And this touches on like Baba Yaga and things like that. I absolutely loved it. I knew nothing about Russian mythology or Slavic mythology or anything like that until I picked up this book, and I loved it. It is a slow goer at the start, but the way she grows and the way you follow her through this and some of the other characters is just incredible for me. Next up is one that I couldn't not put on here, and that is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. This, if you don't know The Hunger Games, I don't know where you've been, because it's been everywhere. The books, the movies, you know, it's The Hunger Games. Everybody knows The Hunger Games. And a lot of the female characters in this are badasses. You've got Katniss, who deals with, you know, the physical toll of going to the Hunger Games when her sister is raped. She, before that, has been looking after her family since her dad died. And then you've got other characters like Joanna, who go through serious torture. You know, Mags, who gives herself up to save them. Like, it's just... If anybody tells me they don't think Katniss is a badass female main character, I'm out. Next, if you know me, is one that's not going to surprise you at all, and that is Who's Afraid by Maria Lewis. I'm actually taking this to represent this entire series. So this series is made up of 7 books, 3 of which follow this character, Tommy Grayson, and the others follow other characters, other female main characters, and then the last book kind of like draws them all together. And Maria Lewis is like an expert at writing female characters. They are so different, all of them. They're all so different, but equally important to the plot and equally just as badass. Tommy is has like the temperament where she kicks your ass and asks questions later. You've got other characters who are a lot more subtle. You've got characters who are scared of their power and learn to harness that power, be it like just the power of themselves or actual physical, like magical abilities. And I absolutely love her main characters. Our characters in general. She writes the most fantastic characters. I love Maria's work. I will die on this hill. This has less than 100 Goodreads reviews. Are you kidding me? Like, these are some of the best books that I've ever read. Like, they're maybe not like the best in the sense of like the great American novel, like, you know, that kind of thing. But the characters, the banter, the way that these women are and how different they are, it's just... I love it. I love them so much. It's called the Supernatural Sisters series, which try and say 5 times fast, but I'm sorry, like, just about nobody can beat Maria at writing female characters, and I love them all. This is a world where magical creatures exist. So Tommy, for example, is a werewolf. We've got a character who is a nymph, and we've got other characters. Again, we've got werewolves. Vampires do exist, but they're not really, like, they're more like parasitic creatures in this, so you don't really see them. You've got banshees and selkies and just all these amazing creatures that she's brought into this world. And there's the 3 banshees who are like at the top of it all, and they are sort of ruled by a council, and obviously the council has gone like full dystopia. So Tommy and everybody that gets involved are here to, you know, fight for the world, and it's just, I love it so much. Next up is another series that I really like, and that is Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. I love this book. Like, my favourite character, one of my favourite characters of all time, is Rose from this. Love her. She is a total badass, total ass kicking badass. Like, she is that sassy, like, character that I just love. I just love her so much. I cannot tell you how much I love her. But Vampire Academy, if you don't know, is about these 2 girls, Rose and Alyssa, and they attend St. Vladimir's Academy, which they call Vampire Academy. And this again comes from Russian folklore. So there are 3 kinds of vampires. There are the Dhampir, which is what Rose is, which are kind of like a half human, half vampire hybrid. And then there are the Maroi, who are the vampires. So like, they are very much like very human. Like, they go to school, they age and things like that, but they live for like much longer than we do. And they are the sort of good vampires, as it were, and Lissa is one of these. And then there are the Strigoi, which are what we see as a vampire. So the red eyes, hunt at night, can't go out in the sun, like kill you and drink your blood sort of thing. And places like Vampire Academy, like St. Vladimir's, are put together to allow the Moroi and Dampier to go to school safely, because the Strigoi are always looking to either feast on or change the Dampier and Moroi into Strigoi. So you can become Strigoi, but you can't become Moroi or Dampier. Like, it's not an it's not like an infectable thing, if that makes sense. Anyway, so yeah, this is about them at the school, and I don't even know how to describe this anymore, because it's just, you know, it's a YA school romance, but then they come out of school at one point because it's like 6 books long. But I just love it so much. Rose is absolutely one of those characters where she'll like kick your ass and ask questions later, and she's just again one of my favourite characters. I'm just going to shut up now. Next up is A Darker Shade of Magic, and for this, obviously, we're talking about Lila Bard. If you don't know A Darker Shade of Magic, so this is a world where there are 4 worlds. So there are 4 Londons, parallel Londons. There is Red London, where magic still exists and it thrives and magic is just everywhere. And that's where Kel is from. There is a White London, and White London is pretty much magically dead, and it is barren, and the life has been sucked out of it. Like, the people are grey and pale, and all the colours are muted, and it's not a great place to be. You've got Grey London, where Lila is from, which is basically our London in the reign of like George III. And then there is Black London, which was completely destroyed by magic. So when magic took over Black London, they closed the doors between all the Londons, and the only people who are able to get from London to London to London are the Antarai, which is what Kel is. And Kel is a messenger between the kingdoms. So he goes from London to London to London, passing messages. There is a White London Antarai as well, called Holland, and they don't really like each other. But then while he's in Grey London, Kel comes across Lila Bard, who is a thief, and she takes something that he really needs, so he goes after her, and they end up getting sort of tied together in this whole chaos that then ensues. I love Lila Bard so much. She is so funny. Like, she's cheeky, she is funny, she is a survivalist, and I just love her so much. If you've not read these, they're definitely worth the read, and if you don't love Lila, I don't know what to say to you. Next up is a more recent read of mine, and that is Goldilocks by Laura Lamb. This is a sci-fi about our world basically in the future. So the world is dying, and they have discovered this other world called Cavendish, where humans will be able to live, but it is far enough away that we wouldn't be able to get there. So they've created these sort of wormhole ends, like kind of like if you've read the Becky Chambers books, like those things where you go on one side and you can jump to the other side. They've created this, and the first group that are meant to go are getting ready to go, and then these 5 women who were the original ones that were supposed to go steal the ship and go instead. So backtracking a bit, this world has gone dystopian, so women are no longer allowed to work in STEM. Women are in different countries oppressed in different ways, and even in the US they've started to sort of pull them back. So the US crew that was meant to go, or the mixed US-European crew that was meant to go, were all women who had done most of the scientific work to get them to this point. Like, one of the women that goes owns the company that built the ship, and they're pulled at the last minute because they are women and they're not allowed to go. So they go, yeah, no, we're going to take the ship. So they steal the ship and launch off of Earth, and of course Earth are like, okay, well, we're going to chase them. And you follow the women on the ship as they jump to Mars. So they have to get to Mars first, and then from Mars they can jump to Cavendish. So you follow them on this sort of preparation to jump to Mars, and then when they get to Mars, the preparation to jump to Cavendish. And really it's all about these women. So it jumps back into the memory of the main character, whose name I can't remember. Valerie. Nope, not Valerie. Naomi. Valerie's the owner of the company and the sort of captain of the ship, and Naomi is her adopted daughter? Surrogate daughter. Adopted daughter, basically. And Valerie has started to kind of go a bit because she's getting a bit like ahead of herself with the power, and Naomi's like, maybe you need to take it back a notch. And so you go back to see Naomi's life as she was growing up and how Valerie treated her and how Valerie got to this point and how they all got to this point. And it follows this all-female crew and they're all very different. There's one Russian woman who's very quiet about her history. There is a couple, a same-sex couple, who are stuck on opposite ends of the argument that goes on. And it's just, the characters in this are so amazing. Like, it's an all-female crew, so it's all female characters. They're all different. They're all so individualised. You can tell they're different people, even though some of them, like, it's a very short book, and Laura Lamb has done a fantastic job of getting these women to be individuals. So, yeah. But, with a warning, this book will make you realise that the world's going to hell in a handbasket, because I read this book a few months ago now, and a lot of the things that are happened in this book, in like the history of this book, are happening now. Like all, you know, the wildfires. The world is literally on fire. And this book predicted it. I mean, I think anybody with any sense in scientific knowledge can predict it, but yeah, it kind of depressed me after reading it, and then everything started happening, and I was like, great. But I love this book so much. Next up is one I'll have you fight me if you disagree with me with, and that is Percy Jackson. And of course, we are talking about Annabeth. Annabeth Chase. Annabeth Chase. She ran away from home and she was a child. I think she was like 7. And she survived on her own until she found Thalia and Luke. And then she is part of the reason that she saved them. Got herself to Camp Half-Blood and then saves everybody's ass from there on. Like, every book that Annabeth is in, she saves somebody's ass. Even though she's not got any mystical powers, like Percy with his ability to, you know, bend water, and further on, like, other ones have abilities to do things, Annabeth just has her brain. And obviously she's an Athena kid, so, you know, her brain. But, like, she is so smart. Like, I love Annabeth. She is one of my favourite characters. Like, I would love to be friends with Annabeth so much. So yeah, you can fight me if you don't think Annabeth's a badass character. Percy Jackson, again, if you don't know how you don't know, is about demigods, so the sons and daughters of Greek gods. Percy discovers that he's a demigod and goes to Camp Half-Blood, which is this summer camp, or you can stay year-round, that sort of protects the Half-Bloods and trains them to be heroes. And Rick Riordan has a way of twining in and sort of bringing old Greek stories to life within these pages. So each one of these books, and throughout the entire series, there's a lot of books. This entire shelf is Percy Jackson related, and the mythology and the Greek stories are all woven through. It's incredible. I love this so much, and Annabeth is just, I love Annabeth so much. Like, I could talk about Annabeth all day. I could talk about Percy Jackson. I have a Percy Jackson tattoo. Like, come at me. Okay, next I'm going to move on to some, like, historical and contemporaries. Move away from fantasy. So, first of all, we are going to talk about Codename Verity by Elizabeth Vine. This is, again, like, there's like 4 or 5 books that kind of encapsulate this world and these characters. This is the first, and the others kind of jump around. This is following our main character, or 2 main characters really. There is Queenie and Maddie, and Maddie is a pilot for the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, who were incredible during the Second World War. So they would taxi planes to and from the war zones, basically. So they would take newly repaired planes and take them back over to Europe and bring over damaged planes from Europe, but they would also drop off troops and things like that. So one of the things that Maddie is tasked with is she is teamed up with Queenie, who is a spy, and she drops Queenie over in different places in Europe. And this is basically told in, it's an interview, it's a confession interview, and Verity is being interviewed, and she's telling the story of Maddie and Queenie and the story of how she got there, really. And this book is so, it's uplifting yet harrowing, and had me absolutely weeping by the end of it. I cannot talk about this book at length without crying, because the way it ends is just heartbreaking, and then the next one picks up from there, but kind of goes to other characters. So you've got Maddie and Rose again is a pilot, but Rose gets captured and ends up in let me just try and say this, Ravensbrück, I can't say it properly, Ravensbrück basically, which was a concentration camp specifically for women. So these stories are kind of encapsulating a lot of collective stories and concentrating them into singular characters, but each of these women again is so strong and so incredible in their own right. And it's just, if you have any kind of interest in World War II and the stories of women during World War II, hit me up. I have them over there, I have them in here. Start here. Keep it on theme, we have Codename Helene. This is by Ariel Lohan, and this is following Helene, which again is her like codename. I don't remember the woman's actual name. Nancy Wake. There we go. And she is not even necessarily a spy. She's a spy, but she's also a contact for the French Revolution in France, obviously, in Nazi occupied France. So she is in France on the ground getting the supplies from Britain. So she is setting up supplies and things and weapons to come to the French Revolution guys so that they can then fight the Nazis. And she's a woman, and she's obviously in like a lot of danger because all she's surrounded by is war-torn men, like men who are at war. And yet she keeps her composure and she keeps her authority, and she's just like the brass balls in this woman. You just couldn't, like, literally a man is in her face saying like that he'll do horrendous things to her, and she's like, yeah, you're gonna step away from me or I'm gonna make sure you're on your ass. And then when he doesn't, guess what? He ends up on his ass. Just don't try it. Do you know the best thing about this book? Best thing for me about this book? Nancy Wake was a real person. She existed. This is a fictionalised version of her life. And I wish I could have met this woman. I think she's dead now. But my god, Google her. Like, Google this book and Google the woman, and her life was incredible. The work she did was amazing, and this fictionalised version reads, it's never, you never ever lose interest in it, and it's just fantastic. Last World War II one, I promise, and that is The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. Again, if you've read this and you don't think these two are badasses, you can fight me. This follows two sisters in Nazi occupied France. Again, one works for the resistance and the other has a German officer billeted at her home, basically. And it's these two sisters who've always been very different, and shows the way that they deal with the war in different ways. So one, like I say, works for the French resistance, is eventually captured and sent to a concentration camp, and it shows you how she deals with that, how she lives through that, how she gets through that. And also the sister who, like I say, has a German officer living with her, and that complicated relationship because she can't be too nice or she's seen as a traitor, but she can't be horrible to him because of, like, she fears for her family. This book has left a scar on my heart. Like, this book wrecked me to the point where I'm scared to read anything else by Kristin Hannah because this book affected me so much. This is actually my second copy. This is the pretty American paperback cover. I've got the UK one over there. It's just not as pretty, but this is so beautiful. But these sisters, I don't know how I'd cope in their position, and just read it. Next up, we're going like way back into like history / mythology, and it is And I Darken by Kiersten White. This is a book about Vlad the Impaler's children. So we have Lada and we have Radu, who are the daughter and son of Vlad the Impaler, and Vlad is the prince of Wallachia. I don't actually know how it's pronounced properly. Every time I check it, it's different. Like, all the different things say it different ways. So I say Wallachia, and it is a country that exists. It is a place that exists. I think it's been engulfed into Romania now, but it used to be its own principality. So Vlad the Impaler was the prince of this country, and Lada is his firstborn, and he was disappointed in her because she was a girl, and she decided to show him that she can be as brutal and as bloodthirsty as he is. And Radu is very much like his mother and is very soft, and is often punished for that softness by both Vlad and Lada. Lada has no qualms about, torture her little brother because she thinks he's too soft. It's really quite bad. And this also follows their time as they are kidnapped for sort of leverage by the Ottoman Empire. and sees them through the sack of Constantinople. This book ranges so much history and really brings to life a lot of like history that you would think is quite boring, like facts and figures and stuff like that, but this makes it real. You connect with the people and it's just fantastic. And Lada, she wants to be the next prince of Wallachia. She loves her country and will do anything for her country, and she wants to be its next prince despite the fact that she's a woman, and she decides that she's not going to let that hold her back. And she is brutal and she is callous and she is absolutely, you know, horrible. Like, as a person, like, if you go against her, she is not pulling any punches, and she's not even really a character that you like, but damn, I wouldn't want to go against her. Like, this is again a trilogy and I absolutely soaked it up. I actually picked it up because I saw the cover out and I was like, oh, that says Andy. And I was like, no, it doesn't. It says and I. But you know, it's me. Next is Lessons in Chemistry by Bunny Garmis. You might see this as getting an adaptation with Brie Larson as the main character. And this is about a housewife, not housewife, she's not even a housewife, she doesn't get married. This is about a scientist who is kind of knocked out of STEM because it's the like 60s, 70s, 60s. And she's treated poorly when she's in as a researcher and treated horrendously by the men, and then meets this scientist, this man who she kind of falls in love with, and they live together but they don't get married and it's a whole thing. But then she ends up running this TV show called Supper at 6. It is a big part of the book, that's what it's sort of based around, the synopsis, but it is only in the latter part of the book. A lot of it is the build-up of this relationship and between her and her partner, whose name I can't remember. And Supper at 6, she decides not only does she want to show women how to cook well and cook good food, good quality food, she wants to teach them science as well. And she does that and it's a hit, like a surprising hit. But her life is also filled with so much tragedy, and it's just, this book is so heart-wrenching and I did not expect it to be. Again, it's a bit of a slow start. Elizabeth is not the most likeable character, but this woman has a spine of steel. Like, I would have given up. I would have given up so much earlier. She doesn't give up. That's the thing. She doesn't give up, but I would have folded. Like, I would have folded like spaghetti in hot water. So, you know, so excited to see this when it comes to the screen. But definitely, I think this is a really, really underrated book. And I think a lot more people would really enjoy this than think they would, because I didn't think I would like it and I absolutely loved it. So if you want to know more, please ask me about it. Next up is the Kay Scarpetta series by Patricia Cornwell. This is Postmortem, the first book. I do have the copies, it's just really, really high and I can't reach it, and I'm not climbing on my chair, so you've got this full, it's fine. Kay Scarpetta is a forensic scientist and she is a pathologist, and these books started being written in the 90s. So you're following, it is like crime but based around Scarpetta, so you get her like point of view. And it is basically her doing her job. Like, these books are just, she is a pathologist, she is the head pathologist for Virginia. Dead bodies come in, she does the autopsies, she deals with the forensic scientists, and like, you go through the solving of these crimes. But I've never read anything like Patricia Cornwell. Like, I don't like thrillers, I don't like mysteries, I don't like detective novels. This is all three, but she does it so well. And I think the reason she does it so well is because Patricia Cornwell herself is a qualified forensic scientist, and she also does extensive research and bases a lot of her characters on people she knows in real life. So in this we get Kay Scarpetta, like I say, she's a pathologist, and we also have Lucy, her niece, who starts off as a child and you see her grow through the series. These two, I love these two so much. Kay Scarpetta is just like, she's looked down upon for, you know, she was the only female doctor in her class when she got her medical degree, and she is constantly looked down on because she is unmarried and she is very mannish in her interests, and she's very good at what she does, so of course that upsets the mediocre white men. And she just, again, she has a spine of steel. Elizabeth Zott would love Kay Scarpetta, can I just say. Lucy, on the other hand, is a bit of a wild card. She is a redhead and has the fiery personality to go with it. I love Lucy as a character. You get to see her grow and learn. You get to see her become this incredible woman who ends up being, you know, a millionaire because of her own tech that she creates. She is so unbelievably smart and so unabashed about being who she is. And Kay Scarpetta, like, she just, they call her Scarpetta a lot, so I keep, her name's Kay Scarpetta, but she gets referred to as Scarpetta. She is so supportive of her niece, that she's more like her daughter. It's just, these two, I love them both. And if you like crime, mystery, thriller-esque novels, and you want characters who are really well done, and science that is insanely accurate, please read Patricia Cornwell. Please. And again, this is also getting a TV show, and it's supposed to have Jamie Lee Curtis and Nicole Kidman as Dorothy and Kay Scarpetta. Dorothy is Kay's sister, so I'm excited. We are on the penultimate book. It is getting there, I promise you. So that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This for me is one of my favourite Emily Henry books, hands down. Nora is a editor? No, literary agent. Nora is a literary agent, and she is cold-blooded, and she is like swift to be like on it. Again, very much like with Kay Scarpetta, she's seen as being like a bitch because she's assertive, and if she was a man she would be treated with so much more respect. But the thing about Nora is she's also seen as cold and calculating, and she is the woman in, you know, the girlfriend in romance novels that is left behind when the guy goes off to take over this small business and ends up falling in love with the owner's daughter and decides to stay. But, you know, she's the girlfriend back home that is just seen as cold and not likeable because she wants to put her career first. And Nora does not apologise for that. Throughout this book, Nora does not apologise for that, and she is very strong-willed. Her sister tries to change her mind. There's the whole element of small town romance in here, but Nora is absolutely steadfast on how she is and who she is. And Emily Henry just gets better with every book she writes. So the difference between this and things like Beach Read and The People We Meet on Vacation, or You Mean Vacation, depending on where you are, it is such a stark difference with Nora, and I love her as a character. Okay, we are on the last book, and that is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. You may be confused right now. If you are confused right now, 1, you have not read this book. 2, you're not chronically ill. I can tell you that right now. This is about Chloe Brown, who is chronically ill. She has fibromyalgia and has decided to get a life. So she has a near-death experience and decides that she needs to move out of her parents' house and stop being mollycoddled by them and live her life independently. She wants her independence, but because she is disabled, she spent so much time being wrapped in bubble wrap by everybody. And I totally see that. Like, I don't have fibromyalgia, I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but they are similar in that they are chronic pain conditions, or conditions that cause chronic pain. Chronic illnesses that cause chronic pain and disability. And in this, you get to see Chloe become more independent. She gets a flat and ends up in this sort of like hate-to-love relationship with Red, who is the superintendent of that flat. Chloe, again, is not the most likeable main character because she is a bit snobby and a bit bitchy, but at the same time, what she's kind of hiding underneath that is how it feels to be chronically ill and in pain all the time. I relate so much to Chloe in this book, and it, again, had me in tears because I felt seen for the first time in a book. I never knew what it was like to be truly represented in a book, but this really did it. This can be seen sometimes as Chloe being really just a bit ridiculous, and if you don't have a chronic illness, and especially a chronic pain condition or a disability, you don't understand, and you need to pay attention to this because this is what it's like. Chloe can be in pain that would put any regular person on their ass. It would have you in bed all day. It would have you running to the hospital, and yet she puts up with it every day. She lives her life through this pain and has to live a life where, so with chronic pain, the problem is when you have a good pain day, so like today for instance, I'm having quite a good pain day. So my pain is not that bad. It's there, but it's not that bad. After sitting filming this video, I'm going to have a really sore back, and then tomorrow it's going to be worse. Probably going to end up with a headache. Sitting again in the chair, my hips are going to be really sore. Tomorrow I'm going to be in enough pain that somebody else would call in sick to work. And I'm going to get up, and I'm going to get ready, and I'm going to go to work. Because that's just how we have to work with chronic pain. And Chloe does the same thing. She gets herself, you get to see those situations that we don't show you as chronic pain patients. You get to see those moments with Chloe where she's overdone it and she's suffering the consequences. And you also get to see how she's trying to be so independent that she's kind of bullheaded about people helping her. She doesn't want to feel infantilized. She doesn't want to feel useless. And she also has to learn that that's not what people are trying to do. Like when Red asks to help her, it's not because he thinks she can't do it. It's because in that moment he recognises that it's much, much easier for him to do it. Like say, get up and make a cup of tea, than it is for her who's like covered in hot water bottles and struggling to move. Yes, she could do it, but he's there to, he's there, he's going to the kettle anyway. Like, and it's getting Chloe past that thing of as well of feeling like she's useless, because that is the biggest, if you ask anybody who is disabled what their biggest negative emotion is, the biggest negative connotation is, it's feeling useless. I know it is for me, and for pretty much most of us, useless is the word that we hate. Useless is the thing, the biggest fear. You don't want to be useless. You want to be a productive member of society, and you want to be, you know, you just don't want to be useless. And Chloe has gone from this place where everybody has mollycoddled her and wrapped her in bubble wrap, and she's trying to strike out and be independent. But she's also got to learn to pull back. She doesn't need to go full speed ahead. And just circling back to the point of badass characters, you cannot get, in my opinion, you cannot get more badass than somebody who is in enough pain to have a regular person run into A&E or ER if you're American, and she just gets up and does things. You just get up and you live your life because you have to, because you have no other choice. And to me, that's pretty badass. So, sorry for that little foray into my chronic illness rant, but that is all the books. I'm sorry if this is a long one, but I got overexcited because I love my female main characters who are I just love them. Thank you again so much to Beccie for asking me to collaborate with this. I am so excited to get these posted, so excited to watch them, because I really want to get all these characters. I want to read these books. Let me know below if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them. If you have any recommendations for books with badass female characters, please let me know. Like I said, go over, watch everybody else's videos, because this is a massive collaboration and I am so honoured to be a part of it. Being asked to do something like this, I could never have imagined. You know, I get asked to do things by my friends, but Beccie is someone I've never met. Beccie is someone I don't really know. And to be approached to make content by someone who has a much larger following than me has been really, it has made me quite emotional sometimes, which is, I know it sounds stupid, I know, I feel daft, but it means a lot to me to be included in something like this. And I really hope you enjoyed the books that I'm, you know, bringing up. Anywho, yeah. That is the end of this video, and thank you again so much for watching. If you are here and you want to let me know you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, or you don't want to type out a comment, leave a female based emoji down in the comments. So like the little, one of the little women emojis, or the girl emojis or something, just put that in the comments. And yeah, go watch the other videos and I will see you in my next video. Bye!